Hello Swogomaniacs, this is Dark Painkiller here. Welcome to another SWGOH video. Today we have a special guest on our channel, so you probably know him very well. So that's No Moon, he's our guest. Thank you for coming here. It's a pleasure for me to host you. Please, if you can tell a little bit about yourself, but yeah, I'm a big fan of your channel, man, so pleasure of having you here. Really happy that you accepted the invite.
Not a problem at all, my man. And I came across, we were actually in the same alliance. Well, we're not in the same alliance. I used to be in a guild in your alliance, and I came across one of your grand arenas, which was very passionate, shall we say, and instantly liked the style that you brought. I thought it was quite unique. I thought it was like full of entertainment, so I had to jump on board and come and collab with yourself as well. And pretty interesting character as well, you know. So yeah, happy to be here, man.
Yeah, thank you for your kind words, man. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I think that we have plenty of topics to discuss. So, like the recent news that are coming from the CG about the upcoming changes to the Grand Arena Championship. So why don't we start from here? So what's your view on that? It seems that we from the next GAC will be setting much more defensive squad than it was in the past, right? So the rules are changing, and also there are some changes on the divisions itself. Yeah, how we are splitting up the GP.
Yeah, I mean, this is the biggest bombshell that CG have dropped in a long time, and
yeah.
some people have seen it coming for a while. I didn't expect it to be this soon.
Me
I
neither.
don't think we have a cadence of when it's coming in, so I don't know. It could even be the start of 5v5. I don't know. It could be an instant one, or it could be starting next month, let's say. I haven't read the post completely yet. First thing that stood out to me is the divisions. I think it's genuinely a good change. I think that as you go up, it does get quite stale, and it turns into a lot of efficiency battles.
That's correct.
And I think this really changes things, because now I think that, obviously in Division 1, you're going to have to add 8 more teams. So 4 on defense, and you're going to have to find another 4 on offense. And me, I'm dropping into the top of Division 3, so I'm going to have to find another 6 teams. And I think, this is going to, first and foremost, it's going to benefit those guys who mod all the way through the roster. So that's
going to be a stretch for a lot of guys, right? To find those 4 or 6 or 8 additional teams. Yeah, might be a challenge.
It feels a lot, but we'll get used to it pretty soon. And I think what becomes hot property now is characters like Nest, or things that can solo or undersized teams easily without breaking up any other teams. The other thing that really took a note, and here's how I kind of imagine it for the first certainly few months, is that maybe it might be less about full clears, and it might be a little bit more about just picking your fights cleverly and taking out as many teams as you can.
Yeah, this is a really good point, and I think that it will just shake the overall strategies that we've been using since quite a long time, because this game mode was pretty much stale. This division, it had to be done sooner or later, so I'm not really surprised yet. I was not really expecting like this immediate change. If I'm to guess, I think that they will release this change as soon as the new 5v5 is starting. So probably early May we will see those changes in place, which I'm slightly afraid of. I mean, I'm really looking forward to this, because it will push us to the limits, to find more teams that we can actually use both on defense and offense. But yeah, you obviously need to adapt the existing strategies, and I had pretty good strategy, really well polished one. I don't know what's your view on that, but I really like to set non-galactic legends defense, so the strongest I can have, just to make sure that I'm not making them and I'm not really helping them to achieve like the full clear, or at least a high level high banner wins. So I'm always setting some tricky defense, and this we can cover like in a few minutes. But all in all, I tend to save the strongest teams on offense. So I'd be really interested to see what's your perspective on that. What's your overall strategy here with 5v5?
Yeah, I certainly certainly will be doing that in 3v3. 5v5 offers up a little bit more off-meta counters, so I feel a little bit more comfortable. You know, if someone has a Ray, then I'm quite happy with Vader. You know, because I've been working on that counter for the last few months, tweaking it here and there. So I don't feel like I need to keep 2 GLs for offense, you know.
Exactly, and I think that we are pretty much, you know, in the same spot in terms of where we are in the rosters. I mean, we are both close or around 6 million. And what are the 2 Galactic Legends that you have? Is it SLKR and JML, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, so those 2, and then I've stumbled upon, you know, I'm sort of halfway towards Sith Eternal without even trying. You know, when I first started currently
really
farming Imperial Troopers, you know, I didn't even realize that they were requirements. So I kind of got quite lucky there, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really like looking forward to unlocking Sith Eternal Emperor, but yeah, I'm not even halfway there. So I'm just checking as we speak right now. I think that, yeah, it's a long way for me, because yeah, obviously I need to dump more resources into Imperial Troopers, and then there are a lot of you know, not very useful tunes like Darth Maul or Krennic, Royal Guard. We are not really looking forward to gearing those guys, yeah, but it's something that we all need to do. So I'm gonna my strategy is just wait and see, just score the gear, and possibly if we have more GLs, then, you know, I want to make an educated guess whether I want to go for Sith Eternal Emperor or the next new big thing, because I have a feeling that we already made a good choice with SLKR and JML. These are probably 2 strongest GLs out there, and now I'm not in a rush to get the 3rd one. I'm pretty okay with what I have. I'm usually able to full clear anyone in JC. I don't know what's your experience in that matter. Have you ever like struggled to get a full clear?
Yeah,
it can happen. I know that.
I remember. Yeah, there's a few where you just. You know, where you just get stuck, or there's some opponents that their rosters are so, you know, it's almost like their roster is a direct counter to your roster. You know, I actually got drawn up against Skel Turix, if you know him.
Oh yeah,
and he didn't look that scary. You know, I didn't think he looked that scary from his roster. And this was about 2 years ago, and he didn't look that scary. And I kind of went into it nice and easy, and he absolutely demolished me. He full cleared me, and I couldn't full clear him.
Must have been a really good strategy.
Yeah, there's definitely been a few times where. Yeah, there was a few times where strategy wins, and I think this correlates to what we're talking about tonight.
Exactly.
You know, this is going to become a huge amount more about strategy. So using those teams that maybe might not get holds but strip banners, you know, teams like Scoundrels, and using the prepared mechanic.
That's a good
so Vandor Chewbacca and L3, because essentially people will run out of teams like Treya that can just blast through it, and now they've got to get pretty inventive, and I think being able to use all of your roster is much better. You know, that was one of the things that Conquest was meant to do, use all of our roster. It doesn't really work. I use about 3 teams in Conquest, but I think this GAC will really stretch everyone's roster. It gives everyone a great chance now to work on those things that they've maybe put off for a while, because you can now strengthen up quite a few teams. And there's a lot of good B teams out there as well.
Oh yeah,
you know, like
definitely. There's a wide list of the big great teams which are actually pretty good. Yeah. So there will be plenty of teams to to choose from. But you know, the thing is here that in order to use them like really efficiently, either on defense or offense, you really need to have them at least like relict, or I don't know. I have a feeling that Gear 12 is kind of obsolete now. It's just not, especially for the defense, it's not much. You can steamroll Gear 12 team with some, you know, undersized teams like, you know, CLS Trio, or I don't know, Treya. Well, even GLs, you know, they can solo like 90% of teams right now, so it doesn't make any sense to set a mediocre defense from my perspective. As it's just, you know, you're just offering free banners to your opponent this way. I don't really think it's a good idea.
No, exactly. And I think, you know, people have got to be smart. They have got to probably look at more what people's rosters entail. So if they've farmed for Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, don't put Old Republic down on defense, or have a variation of that. You know, and I think the biggest thing that stands out to me, there's going to be so many more vanilla teams here now.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you're not going to really see Grievous and Newt, or Grievous and BB-8. Everyone is gonna stay in their vanilla teams, which I think is actually probably a little bit easier to get through.
It is
probably a little bit less
used to
fun to have those off the wall teams, you know.
Yeah, that's a very good observation. I think that, yeah, what's exciting about this change is that it's gonna shake those strategies quite a lot, because we've been like fighting the same. I don't know what's your experience, but I had a feeling like deja vu that I'm like each round I'm fighting pretty much the same teams. Like hardly ever I'm like looking at some very creative defense that can catch me off guard. This is like really like a welcome situation, you know, that I can actually learn something new, that somebody can set a really tricky defense based on, you know, they can actually do some analysis on top of my roster and see what are the weaknesses of my rosters, for example. And yeah, I'm really like looking forward to playing against such a good players that can, you know, utilize the full squad of their rosters and basically, you know, penalize my rosters as well.
Yeah, and I think that's what it's all about. I think those are really good fights where it is quite similar. I think those who have rushed to just farm Galactic Legends are really going to struggle, because they won't have the depth when they come up against some, you know, if you've got 2 GLs and that's all you've got, against a guy who's got 1 GL and some pretty well-rounded teams. Unfortunately, I think that the guy with 1 GL will win that 90% of the time.
Yeah, that's correct. And this actually brings me like to the final topic for today. I would like to discuss what, like, from your experience in like current GC and then like the previous seasons, what were the best defensive teams that actually, you know, gave you any holds? Because we all know that there are some teams that are getting quite a few holds, and there are some teams that can just steal banner, which is still okay, but I'm like talking about some really strong defensive team that can, you know, catch your opponent off guard. Do you have anything specific that you can share based on your 5v5 experience? Because this is, I believe, the format that we are entering like in the next round.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the teams, this is, for me, Grand Arenas on this are going to be less about the top end squads than they are about the mid-end squads. So the B teams or the A teams, you know. So the other thing I think it promotes players is going to be how many counters they know. So what I mean by that is how much of their roster are they used to using? So are they used to using Darth Revan against Jedi Knight Luke, or are they used to using Imperial Troopers against Sith Eternal, or all of these things? And these all add up at the end of the day. So, you know, they might drop a battle against Mon Mothma teams because they don't quite know how to counter it properly with something they haven't used, or maybe they use Traya every single time, but now they're having to use Traya elsewhere, and then they're having to do some gymnastics with the roster. So I think that's going to be I think it's going to favor the better players, and I think for those who are more casual, it's going to kind of punish them as well, you know.
Especially with the recent changes that were announced. Yeah, if we are talking about like 6 to 8 more teams that we need to use from our roster, it's gonna be a stretch for a lot of us, and yeah, we will have to use a lot of B grade or maybe even C grade teams for this, in order to make some reasonable defense strategy, and yeah, to be able to fall clear the opponents. So that will be a challenge. And yeah, I'm actually interested, what are your like top picks? Maybe some not very obvious teams, because we both know that GLs are, if you can set the GL on defense that your opponent cannot really counter, then it's an automatic win. But if we are talking about those B and C grade teams, what would be your choice to, you know, anything that can actually catch your opponent off guard, depending, regardless of whether it's, you know, the front line or something hidden in the back? What's your experience in that you might want to share?
So I really like those teams, like we were talking about Rey Jedi training before, and I really like setting those teams that usually are kept for offense, and now now your opponent has to work it out themselves. So actually, sometimes I quite like setting Darth Treya on defense, because now your opponent goes, hang on a minute, I'm not used to seeing this on defense in territory wars, in territory battles, in Grand Arena.
It's
in
not
Squad
something
Arena.
that we are used to do.
I've
I mean,
got to now
we've been
work out
fighting.
how I'm getting through Darth Treya.
How long it was? I mean, that Treya was meta in something like 2017, and since that time, probably we haven't been really like fighting a lot of that Treya teams on defense, right? Because it's purely offensive team.
Okay. So
interesting thought.
Yep. So they're the sort of teams that I like to throw in. I like to throw in Darth Treya. I like to throw in Rey Jedi Training, Scoundrels. I think they work really well when people are out of teams. Jawas will be a big one. Putting all crit avoidance on your Jawas, and you're going to have to work out. Okay, well, what sort of characters are immune to health effects? So things like OG Kylo or Malak, and which is going to be quite expensive, but actually Jawas can be a pretty good team just because of their mechanics. That's the sort of teams that I quite like to set, and that are going to either strip banners or they're going to cause the opponent a big headache.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really nice list of recommendations, and thank you for sharing this, because this is not really obvious to a lot of us, that you can even think about putting this Darth Treya team on defense. That can, somebody can really like struggle, especially if they, basically use all the typical counters like, I don't know, Jedi Knight Revan or strong CLS team, and you can put this Darth Treya in the bag. It can be a mess, right? It can really go south very quickly. And from my perspective, I'm thinking about many like teams that are not very like obvious. I've seen something like, if you have like Darth Zeta on the Maul lead, and you already like, you unlock the Sith Eternal Emperor, so this probably means that you have both, Marauder, Darth Sidious, all of those virtually useless Sith, but they can actually compose pretty good B grade or C grade defensive team. I've seen this in the past, that people are struggling, with Darth Maul lead, because it's kind of tricky. If you remember, Maul used to be a meta, but it was a long time ago. So basically there are a lot of evades, stealth mechanics. It's really like irritating, and it's just a nightmare to play against.
Yeah, I think you've touched on a point there. I think it's all about making use of those side characters that you farmed out of Galactic Legends. So things like a Phasma lead, and start modding her for more speed. Things like Rolo.
Exactly. And,
and those
leftover rebels. You can still compose a good team out of Rolo, I don't know, Lando, Captain Han Solo. It's actually it's a pretty good team on defense if modded correctly, right?
Yeah, and it's going to cost your opponent banners. And with those sort of teams, that's the Phasma and the Rolo teams. They're the sort of teams that we want to just be touching up a little bit, getting a few better mods on them, just to get out and do some AoEs. So it's going to cost the opponent 5 or 6 banners maybe, and that's the whole point of those teams.
Exactly. It's all about
rather than
efficiency.
The holds, and if it gets a hold, it gets a hold.
Yeah, it's always welcome.
Exactly. So now that.
Yeah, so true, man.
Yeah, right. If you can get a hold out of it.
And what I can actually add to this list.
And the other.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the other one I was going to say, Night Sisters, absolutely fantastic.
I was just about to mention Night Sister, one of my favorite.
Defense.
Yeah, I know that nowadays, especially now in the in this bracket that we this GP level that we both are around like 6 mil, it's hardly ever. I mean, it's more of a offensive team because it can counter. It's a cheap counter to Grievous, right? I know it's not pretty, but it actually works pretty well. But I tend to use my Asajj lead on defense, and it works miracles. I mean, I think that if I'm to like point out the single most efficient team on defense, like in my JC history, it would be Asajj lead Night Sister with Spirit Relict 1.
Yeah, I agree.
It's totally like shocking to me that people with like 6 to 7 million GP, they are still struggling to beat this team. It's probably due to the fact that they are underestimating them. They are using some cheap counters, maybe not very well modded Imperial Troopers. So it's also about good mods. If you have a good mods, if you have R5, maybe R7 Daka, this is a really tough team to beat. So you gotta bring some heavy cannon to bring it down.
And I think the key is going to be one shots, taking in just enough, because now if you've lost another team, well, that's one less team that you've got to get through. So as I said before, I think that it is all going to be about just good, squad selection, getting through, and things like that, because it is going to be hard for the first few weeks and months to get that balance of offense and defense. So I think it's very much a case of, okay, well, if my counter here fails, well, what have I got to back it up or beat that Night Sister team on the second try? They're the sort of teams that just keep going, the Night Sisters, because of the revive mechanic, because of zombie.
It's absolute nightmare to beat if you get this Terminator train rolling. And it's the same story with Imperial Trooper. I know that it's a typical offensive team, but I've seen, especially in Territory Wars, a very good IT teams on defense. It can also be a pure nightmare to go through if you let them, if you allow them to start this Terminator train going. You're pretty much done. You really need to bring some very strong team, like probably Darth Revan or JKR, maybe Rebels, to bring it down, because it's virtually impossible to stop this Terminator train. And other teams that are my favorites on, if you're talking about the big grade teams, Nute Gunray, this is my single I think favorite team. I mean it's a great banner stealer. I think that this is a team that you can put Nute on defense with some random scoundrels or random separatists, and you can always get at least a few banners back out of this, because it's just a tricky mechanic. You cannot really go over this team without losing a banners. I don't know what's your experience with Nute, but it's a pure nightmare. If you are talking about a slow nest, a tenacious nest, and let's say relic Django that hits like a truck and has this damage immunity for 2 turns, man, it's a nightmare. Even I think I failed a few times. I failed with JKR, a really well modded team. So just to bring the perspective that it is a team that you really need to be mindful of, and it cannot be countered with some cheap teams. You really need to bring something which is very reliable to do it.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with that. Nute Gunray is a solid character. He's got a revive as well, unless you're using something like Django to killing him off early. I think it's a very good team. It's going to get rid of banners because of that revive as well. And if you get stuck behind it, it goes downhill very, very quickly. So Nute is certainly one of the best defensive teams, and to be fair, you're not going to use him on offense either, so I would put him down each and every time. I think the only real use is when you put him in with General Grievous and Nute when you're actually going in against Rebels. That can work very well. But I think, put him down on defense every single time. I think it's a great defensive team. I absolutely agree.
Fully agree on that. And yeah, just as a closing point, I think that we can briefly discuss the A-grade teams, so the so-called meta teams, or what would be your go-to if you are to name 2 to 3 teams, even to consider putting on defense. We are just not talking about GLs, but the strongest non-GL teams that you can put on defense. What would that be?
Rebels, I think, is absolutely fantastic.
It's a no-brainer.
So Rebels is great, but I love having them for offense because
me too. It's always so many teams. Yeah, you really like to have them on offense, but if you look at this defense hold rate, it's something. It's a serious business, right? If it's more than 15%,
it's hard to argue.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that it is a great defensive team. Same story with Darth Revan, I think, especially well modded. If you can make sure that your Darth Revan, or especially Bastila, if your Bastila is faster than the opponent's Bastila Shan, it's another no-brainer, because then you really need to bring some GL or really good counter to go over this team.
Yeah, or you're burning your Darth Vader, and there's a lot of teams that Darth Vader will get through well. you're going to have to find a counter for geos again. You're going to be splitting your teams, and I think a lot of people will be building defenses around like a choke point for teams like Treya or things like Darth Vader. So you can't use them everywhere. So I think that there'll be a lot of defenses planned around exposing a certain mechanic. You know, you can't just annihilate everything, or you can't death mark everything. It's you know, I think there'll be a lot of good defenses. So yeah, definitely Rebels. I kind of probably go half and half. I'll keep it for offense half the time, put it on defense half the time. Darth Revan, I've put him down more often in the last couple of months, just because I feel a little bit more confident countering it without it.
Interesting.
And then probably my third one would be General Hux. Is a very, like, just at the bottom of the screen there, General Hux is a really tough team. 3v3 or 5v5 to actually score very well on. And, you know, I know he's very good at helping out Supreme Leader Kylo, and I think there is a point to do it. But General Hux is one of the best defensive teams. If it's not stripping all the banners, it's getting holds, and all these counterattacks is nearly impossible to get around. So
fully agree on that. I've seen a lot of people struggling with Hux, you know, defense in territory war, or you know, in JC. So if you can afford to set a strong FO team on defense, if you can just use Kylo for solo, that is a really good option to have on defense, especially if they are really like well modded. You know, if you have very tanky crew and very fast Hux, you really need to bring something serious to bring this team down. And like my last point that I want to mention, Padme. I think that she used to be more of a like offensive team, but now I'm seeing, especially you know, where I am with my GP level, I'm seeing her on, you know, on defense, and this is another team that can catch you off guard, because there are not so many counters for Padme, to be honest. And if it's placed like somewhere in the back and you already like burned your typical counters, like, I don't know, Jedi or some GLs or some other strong teams, like maybe Vader with what, you are in troubles if you find that Padme is sitting in your back. Yeah, it happened to me a few times.
You can use Rebels, but the thing I do like about Padme is now that C-3PO lives with the Rebels, Malak can quite easily solo a lot of Padme teams as well. So
that's correct.
So, you know, that's a fair trade-off that I don't mind having, because it's going to be R2 in there anyway, rather than C-3PO. I will take that all day long. So but you're right, there's Treya. You know, you can use Treya and Thrawn, which is hugely expensive.
It is.
If your opponent uses that,
think about
I would
those
take
characters
that all day long. So yeah, there's not a huge amount of mechanics that get through, and even mirror matches can get really dicey at times. You know,
that's true.
Doesn't score banners well.
You can easily time out if you get a bad RNG, or you just have a slower speed mods, for example. Yeah, because it's down to like the turn order here. Okay, I think that we touched like important point of like teams that you don't really want to don't want to set on defense, but this is a topic for another video, and I can already like think about a few teams like this just to prevent from soloing. But I think that we just reached the top of this list. Like the GLs are no-brainers, and the Manda, you know, the Beskar Mando is a relatively new thing, so I don't really think that he's such a great defensive team. It's probably more of a nuisance. This is a new thing that we are just not used to, and I'm pretty sure that I mean, he's still a very good team, but not many of us have him in the roster, and you really need to have relict IG and Quill to actually make this team really effective. So I don't really think that he's a great team. He can be probably utilized somewhere else. Okay, so I think we just reached to the top of this list. So Moon, thanks a lot for stepping by. It was a pleasure to host you on my channel, and yeah, I'm looking forward to some more cooperation between me and you. Wish you good luck in the next JC season, and
and yourself, man. And thank you for having me. Always a pleasure, and always nice to catch up with new up and coming guys as well, and just helping out. You know, because you know everyone has to start off somewhere. So, you know, it's always nice to help out, appear on videos, talk about different things, and get people's different perspectives on it as well, you know.
Really appreciate that, mate. And yeah, really like also fingers crossed for your channel. I see that you are growing really fast, and yeah, wish you the best. And yeah, let's see in the future what else we can do together. So thanks a lot, and yeah, that will be it. So
I'll see you soon.
See you
very
soon.
much.
Thanks a lot. Cheers, man. Till the next time.